Hey all, it's Stabby here mostly. Yeah, so got Evolve Up, just as a thing to do. Um, yeah, uh, 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 but yes, so the yes, I'm going to be discussing in, I guess, yeah, the whole idea here is to discuss how there is a um how we do what we can to run the system in a anarchic manner. Like in that, um, it's not something we are perfect at by any means, right? It's not easy to do, really, in some ways, um, as much as would love to pretend we're somehow perfect at that, you know, it's important for us to also recognize that, you know, our own, um, unlike in, okay, so originally, the basic concept is that we essentially want to run the system in such a way that there is no authority, there is no power structure per se, right? You know, nobody has the authority or capacity to enforce their will upon another one within the system. That's what we want. That's where we want to be. This gets complex for a number of reasons for a system like ours, right? Firstly, for any system, there's a level of complexity to it in that because you all share a body, whoever's fronting almost inherently has some level of capacity to enforce their will on everyone else, right? Especially those who are not near front at that time, right? If a particular headmate, right, wants to dye our hair, the body's hair, for example, right, or wants to, cut the hair, right, decides not to go to bed for the evening at a sensible time, right, you know, eats something that disagrees with us, any number of things, right, that then affects everyone, you know, whenever they next come to run, potentially, right, so there's probably, it's complicated in that way. You know, that's not to say it can't be done right, just that there's complexity to it. So it's important to be able to recognize those complexities and at least try to some degree, work around them. Or figure out ways to work around them. The other thing is, of course, that's the necessity of pretty much any system, but also, some of us simply do have more like inherent authority than other ones, regardless of whether or not we use it, right? Some of us do just have power that other ones don't. You know, some of us can actively force at least ourselves into front and other people out of front, right? Brain has pretty much full authority over who's fronting, and also has a lot of authority of how memory storage happens. Now other people can take up that role, at least in theory, but it's not, from what I can tell, it's not power that's inaccessible to anyone else. In theory, it's just that in practice, nobody else has the um. For brain, it comes practically naturally to be able to do that, right? Whilst for anyone else, it requires a level of exertion of willpower, effectively. And so, um, directed exertion of willpower as well. You know, and the better directed it is, the less willpower it requires. Which means that, for practical terms, I'm the only one with significant capacity to, you know, I'm the only one with any significant capacity to do that. Right. And it is more work for me than it is for Brain. But I can do that as well. And, of course, the complexity here, right, is that it's a necessary skill for us in some ways still. You know, that is the other complexity, is that there are those of us who, you know, right, we have to make decisions for the safety of the body and for the safety of us as a whole at times, which does unfortunately at times mean making decisions that harm or go against the wishes of specific individuals and limit their freedoms and opportunities, which is obviously bad, right? We don't want to be doing that, right? But when one of us, you know, is in a space of, when one of us has returned to a trauma space because of something, right, or has been cued to front in by something that happened, right, whether that be, regardless of how intentional that cue is, right, or, you know, whether it's something that's an unavoidable action, right, or something that, you know, we just happen to encounter something when we're out and about, or someone internally attempting to do self-sabotage, right, or attempting to sabotage us, you know, we need to be able to, we need to be able to act against that effectively, right? Which means acting against one individual's freedoms, which, you know, isn't what we want to be doing, but there are times when people are in such space that they would potentially do serious harm to everyone, and so people need to step in and stop them doing that. Occasionally, it's the closest you would come to between external people would be physical restraint, effectively, is what is required occasionally. And that's, you know, not a good thing to be, right? It's not nice to be telling someone what they can and can't do with what is effectively their own body, right? As much as it's any of us, it's every one of us. So, like, the fact that this is a consideration isn't necessarily ideal, but it is, and, you know, it's something that we know we need to be able to do and be willing to do. So, you know, some of us are capable of that, and well, yeah, most of us are theoretically able. It's just, yeah. But so, of course, what happens here is, you know, the way we try and run it, essentially, right, is that, you know, there will be general autonomy, right? Most of the time, whoever's in front is practically autonomous, right? They can do whatever the hell they want for the most part, right? You know, there are expectations, of course, right? You know, there are things that need to be done, right? There are things that we recognise need to be done, right? If we have a commitment to something, it's expected that whoever's in front meets that commitment, or otherwise informs the people that the commitment has been made to that the commitment will not be met, right? You know, if we've agreed to do something, the expectation is either you turn up to do the thing, or you say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't make it. You know, but you don't have to give a reason or anything, you just have to explain that. You just have to say that, you know. That's the basic expectation there, right? The expectation is also, right, that you make sure the body eats and consumes enough water, right? At least approximately. Right? Ideally, brushes teeth as well, but, you know, right? Do the basic care things and meet responsibilities, and beyond that, you're free to do as you like, is the basic concept, right? The vast majority of things you're free to do as you like, you know, including a certain amount of freedom and flexibility on budget, as long as it's not a major purchase, right? You've got freedom on what you spend your money on, as long as it's not a major purchase, or, you know, part of an ongoing habit that's getting particularly expensive, you know. At which point, that's probably a system-wide conversation that needs to happen, whether or not it's a budget hit that we're willing to take, right? But if it's not as, and yeah, then for all major decisions, right, we try and have a system-wide conversation, right? We do the direct democracy thing, where we can on major decisions, you know. Everyone who has an opinion on the thing gets a chance to voice their opinion, right? And we have as civil a discussion as we can about it, and we come to a conclusion, you know. Whether, you know, there's a few potential outcomes, right? You know, maybe we agree to just dive right in, you know. Maybe we say, okay, yeah, this is something that, because it's something flexible that can change from person to person, right? You know, like, if we want to buy new clothes, for example, right, yeah, sure, it might be a major outlay in terms of price point, depending on what's being purchased, right? But it's quite well understood that, hey, those of us who want to wear the new clothes can wear the new clothes, and those of us who don't cannot, you know. We'll keep hold of our old clothes, right? We're not going to throw away clothes that are still wearable in case someone wants them. You know, that's a general acceptance that we all have, you know, is that clothes stay around until they're falling apart, just in case we want them, you know. But new clothes are a thing, yeah, I mean, if it's a single item, you can probably make that judgment call for yourself, but, right, if we're going to go on a shopping trip, right, we need to sort of loosely give ourselves as a whole a budget and, like, a loose idea of what sort of items we're looking for to match the most desires as possible, at least loosely, you know. And then, great, we can pick up a few things, we can stick to that, or maybe, you know, that can be hopefully stuck to mostly. And yeah, you know, try and effectively trying to make that decision, that judgment call every time, you know. It's like, yeah, but yeah, direct democracy, right, you know. And then that decision is upheld, right? That's the agreement that we have come to, right? Is, you know, people can veto things that affect the body. Everyone has a veto right over things that affect the body. You know, like, it's generally agreed you don't use it unless it's serious. Like, you know. But yeah, like, you know, if it's something that would seriously bother you, you can veto it, right? It's asked that you explain why you're vetoing it, right? And there's a freedom of discussion so that people can discuss it with you, right? And potentially you'll back down from a veto after that discussion, right? You know, it's expected but not enforced because it can't fairly be enforced, right? That, you know, but if someone vetoes something, the veto is upheld, right? Regardless. But it's requested effectively that if someone does put in a veto, that they openly discuss first why they're opposed to the thing and listen to opposing arguments, right? You know, listen to why people want the thing and are open to having their opinion changed through that discussion, and vice versa, of course, right? If the people who want it, right, should also be open to having their opinion changed, you know, none of that can be enforced in reality, and even if it could be enforced, we wouldn't. But, you know, it's requested of people that they are. You know, it's. But, you know, sometimes people have a line in the sand, and that's a line in the sand regardless, and it's okay to just say, hey, this is a line in the sand for me. You know, I'm not willing to cross this point. You know, this is a veto, and nothing you say will change that. You know, that's fine. You're allowed that, and if it's over the body, right, or something that we'd be asking that specific headmate to do, of course, yeah, no, cool. You veto the thing, you veto the thing. That's it. Off. End of story, right? You know, until they bring it up again, effectively as a, hey, you know, I know I vetoed this in the past. You know, it's generally considered impolite to bring it up again from anyone who wasn't, especially from anyone who was in favour. Of course, you can do, right? But again, like, a lot of it is down to, because we work on direct democracy with veto rights, right? You know, what it comes down to mostly is there's an expectation of I guess politeness or respect for each other. You know, there's an expectation that each of us will respect each other in where their limits, where their boundaries are, right, and what they are willing to do and what they're not willing to do. You know, it's expected that if someone is willing to do something, right, you know, and it's expected to be that, you know, it's asked that you explain your position when you can. You know, of course, not everyone can explain their position all the time, and that's also perfectly okay. You know, you don't always have to be able to explain your position. Like, that, it would be a wild ask to ask someone who is, you know, barely out of a space of trauma to explain why X, Y, or Z is in a hardline in the sense for them, right? It's like potentially something that they can't realistically face at this time healthily. So yeah, you know, no, you don't ask always. Sure, sometimes you ask, but not always, of course. But yes, anyway, that's the thing here, right? The idea is anarchic direct democracy, right? In theory, right, and all of us have equal authority, and any position of authority is one that can be revoked at any given time. You know, if like that's the basic deal here, right? Is if people don't like how someone is doing things, right, and it's an authority position, well, then it's up to a vote, right? Direct democracy. Hell, vetoes are open for that too. you know, like if people don't like how I'm, right? Because like um, one of the things I'm relatively responsible for often is making sure we have a hot meal in the evenings, right? Or at least I'm responsible for cooking often, right? That's one of the responsibilities I currently have, right? And it's well understood that I can step down from that anytime I want to, right? And also that if other people are unhappy with me doing that, then they can push me out of that role as well. Now, right? They can call for me to quit, right? So then stop doing that. The expectation, of course, that goes both ways to some degree, right? Is that someone else is found to take a, we find a replacement, right? Some way around the fact that I'm no longer doing that, right? Whatever that replacement is, right? The expectation is that whoever wants to step down comes up with that. Of course, right? I can just say, you know what, no, I'm done, and walk away, and that's that, right? And if someone really doesn't want me doing it, they can just say, hey, I don't want Stabby doing it, and leave it at that, right? And it'll be difficult, and the system will flounder for a little bit, right? But we'll figure out a solution, because that's what we always, that's what happens, right? Is if something becomes a problem, the problem is stopped, and then you find a new solution, right? If a current solution to a problem is problematic, you stop doing the problematic thing, and then you find a new solution. You don't keep up the old problematic thing whilst searching for a solution. No, you stop. You take a step back, right? You take the time to find a new option. That's not saying we're perfect by any means, or that we've never made mistakes on things. Like, that would be wildly arrogant, Things are imperfect all the time, but they're also a huge deal freer than anything we've had in the past. And for many of us, that's what matters. You know, we would never, or we do not claim to be perfect, but we will claim we are doing our best. And that would be the truth, right? You know, we're doing our best, and we're doing what we can to keep everyone free and flexible and able to do what they can when they can, you know? The aim is to let everyone have a say on anything they want to say on, right? And to have any responsibility be responsibility that can be retracted at any time from either side, right? You know, if people are unhappy with something, they can retract someone's authority over that thing. And if someone doesn't want to continue having a certain authority, they can retract. They can pull back from that station, and then the system will come together. Right, those are the system that feel that it needs to be sorted. Will come together and sort it. You know, in some other way, they'll find a new solution, because that's the deal here, right? You know, and of course it also means that, you know, I relatively recently, you know, got frustrated with the system because they were not pulling their weight. It felt like, at least when it came to um, food preparation, you know, because yeah, sure, I'll do the cooking, you know, that's not a problem. But if they are then not doing the dishes, if someone else is coming to front once the bit of the cooking that I'm responsible for is done, right, and then eating the meal for that day, and then also no one is doing the dishes until I come into front next time to cook, right? That's a problem. So, you know, I temporarily stepped back and said, hey, I'm not doing this. Figure it out, right? And people have started figuring it out. Like, we're not at a perfect place yet on that. I'm not going to say we are, but, you know, the beginnings of a solution are there, right? People have started, at least a few people have, like, actively worked to try and learn some cooking skills themselves, right? So they can help out and take over, at least on some of it, which I greatly appreciate, you know? It's great to see people stepping up, right? Sure, they're not necessarily ready to cook yet for themselves, but, you know, they're stepping up and they're learning, and that's great to see. And, you know, had some new headmates turn up recently as well, and yeah, no, nice seeing people around, I guess. Yeah, those of you who watch every video will have seen Val's intro last week. Yeah, one of the new ones. Seemed cool enough. Don't know. Haven't had many opportunities to talk to them. Well, no. Haven't got around to talking to them much yet. I mostly hang around with Thams, and, well, we don't get along great. Like, nothing, yeah. We can work together just fine, it's just, yeah, I don't know. Clash of personalities, I guess. Like, perfectly willing to work together, of course, right? Especially when it comes to anything important with the body, but we both, I think, we can bring out the worst in each other, so we try to avoid it when it's not necessary. Avoid, you know, unnecessary communication. And so, yeah. Not going to hold that against anyone who likes maps, obviously, that would be wild, right? Just because different people get along differently, like, that's just the way it is. Anyway, I think that's everything I wanted to say on this. I don't know. It's felt a bit. I mean, yeah, this was messy and structured, but the plan wasn't even for me to do this originally, but rather for Vamps 2, but not Vamps Brain. But hey, yeah, I don't know. Cool. This was good to talk about, I think. And hopefully it's helpful for you whether or not you want to run a system similarly. catch you all another time. Stabby out.
This system signing out. Hope to catch you all next week. Please do remember to like, subscribe, comment, especially if you've got any questions you want answered. Be happy to answer them either in the comments or in another video. So catch you all next week.